They worked through the taint of the Dark One on Sadine to make it, and make it pure, knowing that doing so would kill them all.
And welcome back to the Reign of Books podcast, episode number 18. We have finished up the Eye of the World. This is the fourth part. We broke it into fourths, and now we're done. I'm John Keel, joining you from the War Room. My co-host is Josh Preston, joining you from the Hyrule Cube. We're excited. Yes, wave at him again, Josh.
Hello.
We're excited to conclude this book. This has been a great book. But Josh, today's show is brought to you by the Aes Sedai Sleuth Kit, made by False Dragon Toy Works. Begin your very own adventure to defeat the forces of the Dark One. Each sleuth kit comes complete with an Aes Sedai cloak, a magnifying glass, a warder action figure with prancing horsey, and a Trolloc net trap. Use the magnifying glass to search for clues about the enemy. Cast the Trolloc net trap over evil Trolloc grasshoppers that attack your warder action figure and prancing horsey. Now finish the battle by using your sleuth kit magnifying glass to concentrate the power of the light to burn the evil Trolloc grasshoppers, literally, and save the warder. Now you can be the hero. False Dragon Toy Works is not responsible for children who become sociopaths after playing with our products. The Aes Sedai Sleuth Kit. Indoctrinate your children today. And Josh, we're really happy to have the Aes Sedai Sleuth Kit as our sponsor for today. What an awesome toy idea. Thank you, False Dragon Toy Works. How you doing this morning, Josh?
Hello, Johnny, and hello, all of fandom, Wheel of Time fans, fantasy fans, people who love dragons. But big disclaimer, John, there are no actual dragons in this book that we're finishing up. The Eye of the World, book 1 of the Wheel of Time series. But let's be honest, dragons wouldn't last the first few minutes in a firefight, right? Because there's some very evil, shadowy things in this book. It gets downright creepy at the conclusion. The long journey concludes, and it's not a downer, but it's certainly not an easy fight for these guys. And we will get to that conclusion, to the Eye of the World. But first, before we get there, let's have some news in books and publishing. First up, Johnny, we have 50 Shades of Grey. It's a fantasy book. Why not?
Yeah,
no, it's not the type of fantasy that we cover. It's adult fantasy of a different type. But basically, the fan fiction publisher who sold the rights is sued. So it's a cautionary tale. So there's a lot of players in this, but the long short of it is the fact that the fan fiction site where it was originally published was actually selling the story to Random House, and that 2 women on that website were duped by a co-partner on the website called the Writer's Coffee Shop. So the actual writer of the novel and Random House are not involved in the lawsuit. It's basically the fan fiction publisher who's saying, hey, it's the website, 2 people on the website saying, we want money. And that's the long short of the story. So it's a cautionary tale to say, hey, if you're putting fan fiction up on the website and you're like curating this for other people, you know, if it becomes famous, don't sit here and whine when it actually makes money and you don't get your share. So this is a relatively recent story being published by the Telegraph, UK Telegraph. So 50 Shades of Grey, still booming, still exploding, and now people are coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, we want some of that pie.
Yeah, you know, you start playing in the big leagues like that and you're not really prepared for it, you are going to get eaten, I guess. That's really, for anyone that's an aspiring author out there, and again, you're doing something Josh and I never have, if you're writing a book, a complete work, right? You need to talk to some legal people, lawyers, something before you go making any kind of deals, okay? That's just how it needs to be, otherwise you're going to be out a lot of money. Josh, our second story. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that it's also fan fiction based. You know, fan fiction, we talked about how it's usually you don't make money off of other intellectual properties. This is original fan fiction. It became really big, so people just need to understand the fan fiction scene is changing, and that they can't necessarily sit here and cry foul if they're not paying attention, because people are starting to actually monetize it.
Yeah. Second story here is not really about a book so much, but it's just we wanted to cover Skype breaking this language barrier with their translator tool, and this story's coming off of CNN. I actually heard some of this live, or I heard part of the press conference when this came up recently, and it was really neat because these people were at a lecture and things were being said in very different languages, and within a matter of seconds you were hearing the translation in your language over Skype. Now, does this matter for books? Maybe. What if you had someone from a foreign country come in who wrote a great book and you wanted to hear a lecture from them, and I pull out my Skype translator and now I can understand what they're saying? I think it's pretty neat. I think anything that promotes the use of words and language is worth noting. So good job on you, Skype and Microsoft, I guess, for pushing that ahead.
We would have gotten a translation of Don Quixote much sooner if they could just invent time travel and take this back in time and translate Don Quixote, which I want to read, but it's a little hard to get into. It's like whatever it is, 500-year-old humor. But I heard it's timeless humor, but who knows? One day I'll get around to it. Yeah, this is very cool.
And Josh, I have to mention this is definitely in the vein of sci-fi. This is some Star Trek stuff right here.
Yes. It's coming. It's becoming real. It's like science fiction is real. In our lifetime, cross my fingers, flying cars. But we'll figure that one out. I still think that this technology could break down cultural barriers. So great literature that's written in foreign languages that we sometimes get a translation for, even current ones, much more current than Don Quixote. I want to hear like stories from fiction from Russia or fiction from other European countries, African countries that could be frankly just as good as what we focus on here in the American-centric fiction publishing industry. So anyway, cool. Maybe they'll use the technology that they can apply it definitely to books, I think. And the last story is from The Guardian, a digital renaissance for the science fiction short story. Sci-fi and fantasy fiction is entering a golden age of short fiction thanks to social media, crowdfunding, and a loyal community of fans. So the great science fiction magazines of old, they're no longer here. Those little nickel and dime pulp magazines that made science fiction what it is. Those died off in decades past. But now with new online magazines, there's a lot of really big ones. They're actually publishing. It's not fan fiction. It's actually literary fiction, science fiction that it comes from authors, and they're short stories. And there's a lot of high-end magazines. Lightspeed magazine is mentioned in the story. Strange Horizons. And Tor.com, which is famous for its support of all things science fiction. Tor.com has its own team of editors in their own magazines. So I think this is a great source for us to actually delve into, start reading some short stories, and figure out who's out there creating great short reads. And so that's the news. Any comments on that story, John?
No, but you scare me when I hear things like, excuse me, golden age. That means it's about to pass, doesn't it? That scares me. I don't want to hear those words at all.
No, you're right. The geek culture, that might be one connotation. Don't worry, Johnny. The geek culture is here to stay. Geeks will inherit the earth. The meek will inherit the earth.
The geek,
So
yes.
We are safe. And now we are here to the end of time. No, the eye of the world. This
Could have been the end of time. Could have been.
It should have been. We'll get to the very end. We'll hold judgment to the very end of the book. But we've finally finished The Eye of the World, book 1 of the Wheel of Time series. So I think that makes us official fans, right? Fanboys?
Makes me an official fanboy, because I said so.
Okay. Well, there's one. We'll save our verdicts till the end of the podcast. But thankfully, we do find out at the end of the book what the Eye of the World signifies, kind of in a pseudo-mystical, weird kind of way. And we get to pick a hero out of our popular ensemble cast. Woohoo! We know who the dragon is. No, this book really did succeed in creating characters that really stood out, John, for better or worse. Looking at you, Matt. Even as more characters came on board and they just exploded the ensemble cast, supporting characters, And it really did take us a long time to finish the book, but we finally got there, and there's some pretty stellar moments here at the end. So where we left off, jumping into the story. Our scattered band of heroes were slowly beating the bad guys. They definitely took their lickings, but they came out on top. No casualties yet. No, yeah, I think everybody's. Well, actually, this is
there's a
spoiler cast.
casualty, and it's Matt. He's just a casualty to himself. Great
But
guy.
Tom Maryland, moment of silence.
Oh, Tom Maryland, yes.
Moment of silence.
Okay.
I would forget. Hold on, Tom Maryland.
All right, well, wait a minute. I have my water bottle ready. All right, here we go. Okay.
That was moment of silence for Tom Maryland.
Sip of water for Tom.
Sip of Tom. Sip of the good stuff for Tom. But there is good news. Even though there's one casualty, there's great news. Rand changes his mind. Actually, we can't get there yet. So the good guys, they're still on top. Lan, Moraine, and Nina Eve, they made some awesome, daring rescue of Egwene and Perrin, who were getting the crud kicked out of them. Rand and Matt stayed put in Camelin, but they are in really bad shape, especially since Rand put them on the radar with the Red Aja. He met the Queen's Aes Sedai counselor, Elida, who basically told him he'd bring pain and destruction to the world. So he's not.
Yeah, but you know what? That was I looked back at. Okay, so we've concluded the book. I looked back on that part when he falls into the gardens. He meets the Queen's children. He meets the Queen. He meets Elida, and what we got from that whole scene basically was whatever Elida told him. And at the end of this book, that whole part where he fell into the gardens and met all these people really meant nothing at all. It didn't play any part at the end of this book. The only part that mattered is that you might have wanted to know that Elida said he was going to bring pain and suffering on the world. And I was a little disappointed that Robert Jordan didn't try to tie that back together in this book. So my assumption is that in the later books, it will probably matter that he's met the Queen. Maybe, I guess, I don't know. But I felt like that was a significant chunk of the book that really didn't count for anything in this story. Little irritation right at that.
I'm not sure where the series does go. We're completely new to the series, so it's kind of like we have not spoiled the rest of the series. Don't know what's going to happen, what characters will come and go, where it focuses at all. So I liked it because it was just kind of another pressure, another burden on Rand to say people are after me. Why are people after me? And really, what do people see in me? What's going to happen? Because he slowly changes, or he slowly realizes that he can't escape his destiny. And that's actually where the next part of the book leads us. It's not just running away from the bad guys. So we come to the scene in the Queen's Blessing. It's the end where Rand and Matt take refuge. It has its own group of roughnecks. There's a lot of political turmoil in the city. So the roughnecks, they're hired by the innkeeper, Master Gill, to protect the establishment. And I love this part, John, because a group of white cloaks, are the sadist of the book, the really evil people. They come looking for Two Rivers folks in his establishment. And Master Gill is a supporting character, right? But this is his scene. They come in, they slander the Queen's name, they accuse Dark Friends of being around, and I love it because everything quickly escalates. Blades come out.
Oh, it's like Gil bows up, yeah.
He bows up, and it's like the Wild West moment. But again, it shows the strength of Jordan's writing because these are all supporting characters. There's no main characters here, but one of the best scenes at the end, and I love it because he basically he tells them to get out, or he'll have what's left of them carried out in a wagon, and he starts counting to 3 like I do with my kids, and I'm like, holy cow! He actually gets here's the quote from the book. He says 1, and the White Cloak says, "You must be mad, innkeeper, threatening the children of the light. White Cloaks hold no writ in Camelin. 2, can you really believe this will end here? 3, and then the White Cloak's like, so
okay, bye. All right, sorry. We're coming back though. We'll get you and your little dog too. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it because I love seeing someone finally stand up to these. I'm not going to say what I'm thinking, but these folks, and they really didn't have much written Camelin, and I like that, but I still can't figure out why the Queen allows them to do whatever they want. But it was nice to see someone meet their force with force, and push them back. So it was satisfying for me.
You're right. Jordan, again, with the White Cloaks, doesn't explain the whole political, cultural, backstory. He can't. I mean, this book I think, succeeds in a lot of ways because he tells the story through the eyes of these people from the southern part of Andor, which is, kind of forgotten and no one ever visits. So it's like a whole new world to them, and telling it through their eyes kind of lets you acclimate and kind of get comfortable, and it throws tidbits that are really interesting. So the White Cloaks, yeah, they're never explained why they have freedom everywhere and what their actual power base is, but you're right. And right after that, they're gone. I feel bad for Master Guild because we know, the last innkeeper to help them kind of had his establishment burned down. So it doesn't pay to help these guys. But then one of the weaker, I don't know if it's weaker part of the books, comes next. It's the big happy reunion. After what seems like an eternity apart, the group actually gets back together. Moraine makes it to Camelin. So it's not huge and climatic. It's kind of like this happy, quiet reunion in the back of the kitchen. And it makes sense. The Aes Sedai have to be, kind of have to be undercover, or kind of keep a low profile in the city because there's a lot of anti-Aes Sedai sentiment in the city. So, and they're trying to obviously be stealthy anyway. So they come in, and it's like, a lot of emotion there, but still a little subtle scene that maybe could have done more for me. I didn't cry or anything.
Absolutely not. But all I really cared about in that scene was finding out what was going on with Matt, because you knew at that point that something was really weighing on him. And of course, when Moiraine goes into their room and sees him in his Gollum state, in his shriveled up, I mean, he was basically becoming what the peddler Thane was becoming, just this twisted, schizophrenic almost. And I was I wasn't surprised that he had ended up that way. What I was surprised about was that when she laid her hands on him to try to remove that taint, she couldn't remove it completely. And that was what I wanted to find out, was what was going to happen to Matt, because we needed her there. So that the reunion was nice and all, but ultimately I was like, okay, yep, got it. Give him hugs. All right, let's go. Let's move along. Let's find out what's going on with Matt here. Whom I hate. Excuse me. I mean, use correct English when I'm hating on a character.
Dude, that was a pure Exorcist moment. He was in bed. He wasn't talking, in Latin, but he was basically reading Nina Eve's mind, telling her, "You're not supposed to have feelings. You're not supposed to think of yourself as a woman. You're a wisdom." He went pure Exorcist on us.
Yeah.
And the warder Lan had actually grabbed the knife from piercing Moraine, who was doing the seance on him. But this is an important moment. Not to dwell out here long, but it's important also because of how depressing things get really quickly. Because I can't remember what turns the conversation in this direction, but it's the fact that Perrin basically said, "Better we were all dead," and Rand jumped because he heard Perrin say it, and he was thinking the same thing. He was thinking all these bad things are coming. The fact that the Shadar Logoth dagger that Matt had was like a beacon, I think, to the Fades. And and Lan, in his dry humor, said, "It looks like you brought a new Trolloc war to Camelin, sheep herder." So they're just like, they can't win, and they're really kind of like, you know what, maybe the world is better off without us. It's kind of depressing, their state of mind, I guess. And they, at this point, not at this point, it's actually later. So I don't know if you had any thoughts there, but
yeah, it's actually interesting you say that they can't win, because they're called sheep herders the entire book. It doesn't matter what they do. Lan just looks down on them the whole time, so they can't win in that way. And I remember thinking at this part of the book that it was crucial for Matt to find this dagger. Okay, he's treasure pleasure. He wanted that dagger, but and we assume, and you pitched this theory out last on the last podcast, we assume that since Moiraine can't remove the taint, that Matt will end up causing great evil throughout the world at some point. Something's going to happen later on, okay? Maybe it's not going to be that, but he will continue playing a role. But if this is the point we get to with Matt, and this is about the best he's going to play out, and even in the end of the book, he doesn't do anything more except whine, why couldn't we have had a more mature character to get to this point? Like, was there a reason he had to be such a 4-year-old the entire time? I mean, he still could have picked up that dagger just out of this moment of lust for treasure without him being such an annoying loser for the entire book. And I'm kind of taking a little issue with the fact that he wasn't made out to be a young man or a young teenager as much as he was made out to be just an annoying little kid. And I just think Robert Jordan could have done a better job with that character. I don't understand why I hate him so. I mean, I know why I hate him so much, but why he couldn't have been more mature. So
he was a little two-dimensional, and I was looking at. That's a good point. You brought how he came, the importance of the dagger and what role it plays. But I never had a sense of what his role was. You know, we had the three Ta'Veren, the three that are weaving the pattern in the web, or excuse me, the three that are weaving the web, the pattern of the web. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
The pattern's weaving around them because they're the Ta'Veren, and Matt was considered one of them, but again, he didn't do anything except find this dagger. So in later stories, I understand the pattern will continue weaving around him in some way. He's probably going to become, what did we call him earlier, Darth Dagger? He'll succumb to the dark side, okay? But
you beat me to that theory, and
I was just disappointed in that character.
I should have mentioned my theory last podcast, because I thought with the way the dragon is reborn in every different age, I actually thought that he was going to be the betrayer of hope for this generation. If you remember, the betrayer of hope was the guy, one of the Forsaken, that was attached to the Dark One in the last age, that actually helped, undo the Lord of the Morning. Sorry, all these nicknames running around in my head. So I thought he was going to be the new betrayer of hope, and I don't think that.
Oh, maybe, yeah. That's a great point. Hey, I have one other thing that I thought might have been kind of a plot hole, but not really. And if the Fades and these, well, I think it was just the Fades and the Dark Ones would sense the evil coming from this dagger, and it was said at one point that it would be like a beacon to them. Okay, and Moiraine had to kind of contain the field that Matt was putting off, so the beacon wasn't so loud and bright, right? But there was a scene right before the Rand and Matt get to Caemlyn where they were right near a Fade, and the Fade acted like he didn't sense any. You see what I'm saying? The Fade acted like he didn't sense anything. And so I was like, well, if it's a beacon, then how come they were able to sneak by this Fade over here? But I also liked the fact that would have been another way, because there were a couple of ways they tracked them throughout this whole story, and that would have been one of those ways. And you'll see here when we talk more about the peddler Thane, this whole dagger thing's almost like, I kind of looked at it like the rhythm guitar in a band, because these events are happening, but it feels like it's paced, right? You're like, how do they keep up with them? And then you find out later on, oh, it was a beacon so they could sense it. But then there's that little plot hole there in the story when the Fade just acted like there was nothing around him, and they said the closer you get to it, the stronger it is. So anyway.
That's a darn good point, and I'm thinking now that the magic in this book is kind of like a cell tower GPS. You can triangulate kind of near the location you're trying to get to, but it's never going to be exactly 100%. So yeah, very good point. I was like, that's a plot hole. If the Fades can't really, tell that they're right across the street with the dagger in his pouch right before they got to Caemlyn, and I'd forgotten about that. So we'll just chalk it up to the fantasy equivalent of a cell tower GPS. So that whole conversation where she dampened, that's the same conversation where she dampened the dagger's evil, and everyone's depressed. Perrin is like, all right, let's just better off dead, and Perrin's in this bad place. But basically, they have to make a decision, and this is where it's really cool, because they meet the Ogier. Loyal. He's like the Ogier from the Steading. He's part of the group now. And they can't get out of the city because they're surrounded. That's what Lan mentioned. There's a war coming to Camelot if we stay here, because they're amassing in the countryside, all the Trollocs and the Fades. And so it's like, really, things are escalating. And this conversation makes you aware that things are really escalating. And this is going to be full-out war in the middle of the world, which usually, the fights are usually in the borderlands at the ends of the world. so you're freaking out. But the OGR basically mentions a story from years ago. I can't remember if it was called. There was a certain war, but this man came to the steading for he was kind of trying to find sanctuary in the steading, and he told them of a story about how the Dark One was going to destroy the eye of the world, and then Perrin says, "Hey, we met tinkerers who met an ideal woman in the Borderlands who said the Dark One's going to destroy the eye of the world." And then Rand says, "We've been having dreams, and yeah, sorry we didn't tell you." And the Dark One kind of said the same thing. So I found this really cool. The plot point, or actually how the story developed here, huge story arcs being revealed right here that actually push the action to finally, instead of saying let's go to Tar Valon, then we'll figure it out. All these stories sit here and say, all right, now we know what we have to do. We have to actually find the eye of the world now. There's no more time. So the OGR comes into play too, because Moraine is saying, we'll never get out of the city alive. And then they talk about a secret way to travel around the world. So this is kind of convenient, but I think it's a really cool part of the mythology of the book, because the OGR, they have these secret ways that were made, that were given to them as a present from the male Aes Sedai back many years ago, and they taught them, or they created the ways. I can't remember how the ways were actually created.
Well, they were created by the male Aes Sedai who hid in the steadings during the breaking of the world, who were trying to hide themselves from the taint. And as a gift to the Ogier, after they decided to leave, they gave them the ways and built them for them.
You do realize that you're saying Ogier, I'm saying Ogier. We're going to confuse the heck out of everybody.
Sorry. Well, I'll tell you what, I can speak on authority with this, because as I've told everyone before, I will supplement my reading with audiobook as I'm going down the road to work, because I have to drive a little ways. And in the audiobook, they call them Ogier.
Okay, Ogiers.
That's the only reason why I pronounce it that way. But this part of the story really made it worth the adventure you had to go through with the characters when they got split up, right? Because Moraine heard it from 3 separate sources about the Dark One wanting something to do with the Eye of the World, that she made that decision that says we have to go now to find it. And that kind of made it worth it. And I'm glad Jordan brought that full circle. But Moiraine also said something else in this scene. Exactly. We give him a golf clap for that. Moiraine said something else in this scene that ties in with something I've said previously, actually from Hyperion. And that is she says the creator may have had a hand in letting them know about the Dark One's plan. She actually mentions the creator. And remember how I'd said earlier, probably the very first podcast, we have a physical manifestation of the evil that fights against the creator, and it's called the Dark One. But the creator, you don't know anything about the creator's plans. You don't know anything, like, is there going to be a physical manifestation of the creator? Is that actually what the dragon is, or the Lord of the Morning? Because the Dark One seems to be a level above that, above the dragon. But maybe I'm wrong. But I keep wondering, one, what's the creator's plan? What's the physical manifestation going to be to balance out what we have on the dark side of things over here? So I thought it was interesting that she threw that in there. The creator may have had a hand in this, because you don't hear about that the whole story.
Well, yeah, we have to find out if the creator is always going to use proxies like the dragon or other Aes Sedai who use the light. The creator gave them the true source and the one power, and he gave that to them. So maybe that's how it's going to manifest itself to fight the Dark One forevermore. He's never going to intervene directly. But that's a really good point. And after they actually, Moraine hears all this, I would have been biting my tongue or beating my head against a tree, because the Ogier story, Loyal, he basically said this man came to the steading 20 years ago, told us this story 20 years ago, and he meant to go take it to Tar Valon, never made it there. And so that was the depressing thing, I think, for Moraine. If I were her, it's like, man, we could have known this 20 years ago. So I would have just gone outside and smoked a cigarette, just kind of been like, this we are late to the game. So it was really cool, like you said. Robert Jordan wrapped this up beautifully, and this propels us to the end of the book. This is their mission, to make it to the Eye of the World, which is pretty much guarded by the Green Man, which sounds really cool. I don't know if it's Area 51 Green Man or some other type of Green Man.
Jolly Green Giant Green Man. Wait, hold on. I told you I was going to do this when we got to this. Ho, 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 Green Giant. Which is exactly what he was. It was pretty awesome. But
You
anyway,
might be closer.
we're skipping way ahead because you were talking
No,
about the
yeah,
ways, and I thought the ways. This part of the book, when they actually went into the ways, this was the coolest part of this entire story for me. And I know everyone. It's a little odd that I latched onto this part, but it was an unknown area. Moiraine and Lan really knew nothing about it, so this was not everything was going to be a surprise in the ways. And we'd also heard Loyal, the Ogier, mention something about a black wind. People had gone mad when they went into the waves. So I'm wondering myself, what is this? Because Moiraine says you can travel from here across the world in a matter of a day, or it could take you 5. It just depending on what gate you want to come out. Time doesn't really matter inside the ways. It's a completely different thing. And I kept thinking of Hyperion Farcasters, and this is Robert Jordan's Farcaster network. But I thought this was the best part of the book.
No,
What did
yeah,
you think?
it is awesome. Just to remind everybody, the ways are the secret passageways. You described it perfectly. It's a shortcut through the world. So this is what they need. They can sneak out of Camelin. So they get to the ways, which is it's buried in the city because there's ways all in different parts of the world, especially where the Ogier
Which was where the Grove used to be.
Where the Grove used to be. They built cities of old. Bam, we're here. So we got to get here, and we are here. And they get inside. It's been corrupted because remember, like you said, it was created by the male Aes Sedai. It's been corrupted. So now it's dark. People go mad. The Black Wind is something that the people who actually make it out alive talk about. So you're like, oh man, this is going to be harsh. It ends up being a giant black hole. There's nothing to look at. It is kind of like, wow, this is like really depressing. You're just following the Ogier. Don't lose that guy because he's the only one who can read the signpost inside of the ways, which have been
and
corrupted.
Follow the white line. Yeah.
Follow the white line, then he can tell you which island to go to. So it's basically just a short description. It's totally black. It's an oppressive black, and they go across decaying bridges that are like suspended in the air, and they go from rock island to rock island, and they can't see anything. So I love this because it gives time for the characters to have some interactions. It just shows, this is the Farcasters. And by the way, Hyperion is a science fiction novel by Dan Simmons. Absolutely phenomenal. Go read it. One of the best science fiction novels of all time. But this is the way to traverse across this world. And there's not a lot that actually happens. So we don't have to spend a lot of time here. There's some fun interaction between the characters. But at the very end, it's kind of like a Hail Mary because, yes, we know that the Black Wind has to come. And when the Black Wind shows up, it is literally like, follow the Ogier, run. And even Moiraine and Lan are scared. There's a lot of without thinking. It's just like knee-jerk reaction. They have to get out. And I loved the Black Wind. It was a very, this book is creepy in a lot of ways without being graphic. And the Black Wind basically said some
graphic.
Yeah, it was kind of graphic in the language, just of what the Black Wind said to them. It's the epitome of pure terror and madness. So what did they say? I had something where it said.
Are you saying what the Black Wind said? It was saying things like, and it was these really sickening, sweet voices talking about putting their strips of flesh on plates and sweet,
hearing them scream,
sweet drips of blood. Yeah, exactly, and the scream. And that would have just reading that freaked me out too. Actually, I think I heard that part. I think I was in the car at the time, and I was going, okay. All right, get away from the Black Wind, please. Oh, hey, can we back up just one sec? There was a part inside the ways that I was laughing out loud when I read it. One, we find out that there's blue Aja and red Aja, because Moiraine's talking to them when they bed down one night, right? So basically, Josh, we've got our Democrat Aes Sedai and our Republican Aes Sedai, because they're all on the same team, but they have these philosophical differences. And then we find out that the Dark One has some black Aja. So he's got some evil Aja in there. And the scene when they bed down on one of the nights and everyone starts talking about these other boys and girls that they were meeting. And Rand Rand lays down between Perrin and Matt, okay? And so he rolls over to Matt, and Matt says, who was it Els or was it Min? It was Min. Matt goes, who's Min? And Rand's like, shut up. And then he rolls over and he's looking at Perrin, and Perrin goes, hey Matt, who was Els? And he just, he was trapped between these two, and they were already giving each other, a bunch of grief about it. And then Egwene's over here all upset because she heard some other girls' names, and it's kind of a teenager humor, but I was laughing out loud because he couldn't get away from that stuff. So anyway, back to the Black Wind.
Since we're in the ways and there's not a whole lot to do except look over your shoulder, this place is just like nothing to do, kick some stones. I'm going to officially from here on out call these teenagers, I'm going to call them the Andorians because they're from Andor, right? So they're Andorians, just for future reference, not to be confused with the Andorians from Star Trek. Just want to put that out there.
I was about to say, man, there were no warp drives in this story, Josh.
So the Andorians are having their high school hijinks. And I forgot to mention also, this is important to know, we find out how did the Trollocs traverse the world, because the Ways were supposed to keep out dark friends and minions of the Dark One, but because they've been perverted, that's how the Trollocs got to the Two Rivers. So that's the actual major plot point, because they find Trollocs blasted into the stone, frozen in horror. So it's just like Shadar Logoth in here. This Black Wind, it's bad guys that they fight other bad guys, and it's just evil on evil. And so some of the Trollocs didn't get out of there, and that's another part of the Ways that makes everyone sick to their stomach and scared. It's like, this place is absolutely freakish.
Well,
so
there's all the lions and tigers and bears inside, right? Like we've heard from other books, in these dark places where no one goes anymore. It's very scary. But I did forget to say one thing. I'll bet Josh would know how to handle the girls. I'll bet John would know how to handle the girls. I wanted to slap those two.
Josh really? And John, or Perrin and Rand?
All four. But I digress. We were talking about the Black Wind.
Yeah, we were.
And I jumped into childish humor. Look at me. Yeah, I know it. So it's talking about eating flesh and drinking blood.
So even Moiraine and Lan are scared, but the cool thing is they just follow the Ogier. He gets them to their exit point. So they're only a few islands away, a few dark rock islands away from the exit point, and it's really cool because Moiraine, they don't have the key to get out because the stone entryway is missing the key. So she just basically
no, Josh, no. This point in the story right here. No, I'm sorry. I know I interrupted again. I'm so rude. But listen, when Moiraine, this was so awesome. When Moiraine looked at the rock and then she said, "Go, gadget and staff," and that crazy flame leaped out of the end, I thought that was awesome.
It was awesome. I actually quoted that because in the Ways, everything is corrupted, right? So even her energy wave was this sick, flecked. It was. I don't know what it was. It was flecked with energy particles, and it shattered. She basically blasted the door like a welder. It was awesome. She cut through that thing, and then Lan. I mean, it's like, we can't move it. It's so big. It's like one thing after the other. But then Lan, he gets his awesome warhorse, and he just charges, and he rears up, and the warhorse knows how to slam into opponents. And he just, of course, you need a horse to actually move this thing, right? And that was totally awesome because Lan just goes right through. So their escape strategy works, but then they have to have a rear guard, right? Speaking in army terms, they have to have a rear action where Moiraine uses her power, and it's great that the language that's used here. And this is Moraine's bad, awesome moment. Part 2, she had the first one where she fought the Trollocs and she made the earth shake. But it was a blazing spear of white and red and yellow streaking into the black, exploding, coruscating like shattered diamonds. And the wind shrieked in agony, and it screamed in rage. That's a quote from the book. So it was awesome how she was using her magic, even though it was corrupting, and she was fighting the evil and letting everyone else get away. So that was cool. That was the Ways, and no casualties. And thousands of miles away now, and they're at the top of the world, and they're close to the eye of the world now.
Hey, Josh, did you ever get irritated at Moiraine because she kept speaking cryptically? I mean, the entire book. Okay, let me give you an example. This is my impression of Moiraine. They come upon something. I swear, every time. She'd walk up to it, she'd look at it, and she would say something like, I should have known. Or, I can't believe they would do that. And Josh, inevitably, everybody in the group had to go, can't believe what, Moiraine? Why can't you just say anything outright? It would be like in this podcast if I said, Josh, when they got to that stone at the end of the ways, I can't believe what Moiraine did. It was so incredible. You'll never believe what she did to get them out. And you're going, tell us what she did, John. Did you not get that for the entire book? She would never say anything right out. Did that not irritate you?
It didn't irritate me, but that was her character. She was the mysterious Moiraine. And I can paraphrase another one. When she found out that the guys were having dreams and like all these prophecies of destroying the great serpent in the eye of the world, they were in the end. She basically said, there hasn't been a dream walker in Tarvalon in over 1,000 years, but I could have tried. Could have tried what? Could have tried what? So it's very cryptic. I love her. She's got mad props for being a cutie and having awesome powers and helping these guys, so I kind of forgave her on being so cryptic. So, enter Shinar. We have to move on to Shinar.
Listen, I know I'm terrible because I keep thinking of things after we've passed, but we forgot something huge that we talked about before the show.
No, we didn't.
No, we did. Did we not? No, you're right.
What was it?
No, we didn't. No, we haven't gotten there yet. You're right.
Okay. Enter Shinar. Shinar is one of the countries. We have Andor, where these guys are from. The countries are vague in this book, but if you're paying attention, you can wrap your head around it. So Fal Dara is one of the fortresses in Shinar, and they pop out here. And they meet. This is a warrior society. I love it. We learn land's history here. They come into the city gates open. They ask if the banner of the Golden Crane will fly again. They're directing these queries. This is the first thing. This is the introduction. Everyone's cheering on Lan because he's leading this party, and so we're getting this sense of, man, Lan's this important dude. But it's a race of warriors with kind of the samurai hairdo. It's all shaved heads with the knotted ponytail in the back, and everything's utilitarian. Everything's for warfare and for just for whatever basic survival skills. And they meet the king, his Algamar, I think his name is Algamar. And it's a desperate situation. We find out here at the end of the world that there's the shadows amassing this huge army of darkness with Trollocs. The winter's gone on long. We get great descriptions of this land where you have bursting trees because it's so cold outside. The winter has just blasted this land, and each kingdom or each little country is looking after its own. So if there's this huge threat, why is no one else in the world bringing all the nations together and fighting this? Because he said this is almost as bad as the Trolloc Wars, or we haven't seen anything like this since that time. So for me,
I picked up on that too. It seemed like nobody in the rest of the entire world was paying attention that the northern section of the world where the evil one was collapsing. No one in the rest of the world seemed to even know about it. It was pretty odd.
It was interesting. There's some social commentary on war and allegiances and the right way to fight a conflict. Like you said, the red Aja and the blue Aja, how's the best way to save the world? So it's a complex world, and it goes to show you how big it is. And you can't really rally everybody to stop what they don't believe is necessarily coming. People some might have their heads, like ostriches with their heads in a hole. They don't believe it, So it's painful to watch Algamar because he knows he's begging Moiraine and Lan to go with him. He's talking about people will rally around the banner of the Golden Crane, and Aes Sedai is worth 1,000 of my soldiers, and he knows he's going to his death. That's interesting. The Gap of Tarwin is where they're going to make this last stand, and it's like, holy cow. But it's really good because Lan holds to his guns, and Moiraine says, you fight your battle, we must fight our own. And she reveals to them that they're going to the Eye of the World, and we get this awesome mythology about, well, the Green Man, have you met him before? And Moiraine has, and he's like, the Green Man only appears to people one time, and hardly ever to humans. And she said, our need is the greatest in the world. And this is where we find out, how she uses people? Other than being cryptic, Moiraine also, frankly, she uses people. And the Ogier, Loyal, our friend from the steading, they have a special relationship. These Ogier have a special relationship with the Green Man, so she knows that's her ace in the hole. He will appear to them because their need is great and there's an Ogier there. So that's great mythology. A lot happens here, even though this is not the climax of the book. It fleshes out the world even more, and I absolutely love that.
No, I didn't have any comments, sir.
No comments from John.
Surprise!
So we
I didn't
go.
have to do so much during the rest of this podcast. I owed you that one.
You owe me, and let's breeze through this. There's another I guess thread in the story that's wrapped up here. We find out this horribly decrepit and disgustingly dirty beggar.
Pat on Payne.
The beggar. Who? What? I was going to have a big reveal.
Oh,
no. What's his name? Peyton Thane. If anyone remembers, hundreds of pages ago, the peddler that comes to the Two Rivers every year, he's a dark friend. He shows up here, they capture him, and they learn his whole story, how he's been tracking them for years. It shows how insidious the Dark One is. He has twisted and warped people in secret, so so people won't amass and people won't know that he's actually been building this army of dark friends. And this one in particular, Peyton Thane, is so twisted. He is like Gollum. He has a love-hate relationship with the Dark One. So anyway, they capture him. That plot thread is wrapped up. They've captured him. But he's still
alive. They never actually kill him.
No, they just want to interrogate him.
He's completely twisted. But I wondered if he was going to come back later on in the book as well.
So thank goodness.
Even at the end of the book, he did not die. I mean, not this book. I mean the whole thread of books. I mean, could he come back in the second or third book?
Well, I spoiled that for myself. I looked at some art. They have awesome art for Wheel of Time, and so yeah, don't go looking too far. You'll see some awesome art. I think he does, and he's now kind of in their hands, and they can interrogate him. But our travelers go their separate ways. Lord Algamar goes to fight his last stand. It's like the Spartans in 300. They're gonna make their last stand and die to the last man. They're gonna stop this evil. So I have a lot of respect for the Chenier. And our travelers go to the Blight. And in the Blight, John, I didn't know what to expect, but this place is perfect for Trollocs. It stinks. It's hot. Everything is twisted, even the vegetation.
Everything's hostile.
Everything's hostile.
Everything has physical force in the Blight, which was a little surprising. When I thought of the Blight, I kept thinking of a desert area where everything had just died and nothing can grow. I was surprised that there was still vegetation there that basically had been twisted into these evil monsters, but it was like this perpetually rotting vegetation. Much cooler than what I imagined when I first heard the word the Blight.
You're absolutely right. I thought it was a desert, but that turns out going back and saying, wait a minute, that was kind of like the borderlands. I don't know all the geography, but there's the wastelands or the borderlands where the Aiel, the warrior race, lives. So you're right. The description here, and I'm glad you brought it up, it's just like the ways. The Blight, Barlan, Camelin. Robert Jordan has a way to bring this world alive. The characters and the world, and you're like, that's really distinct. I only had issue with how short they were in the Blight. There is the one love scene. There is a love scene in the story of the Blight. But not a good place to do it, but you can tell us, because this is your favorite spot of the book, John. You can tell us about that.
Well, that's not really a love scene, like in the proper sense of what that means to most people. Yeah. But actually, this is funny to me because Nynaeve finally makes her move on land. The guy that she's hated for the whole story, because he's a better tracker and warrior and all this stuff that he's been doing since he was a child. She can't stand it for whatever reason. And she goes up to him and basically spills her heart to him. And she says, "Don't make me say it out loud. I've already been too forward." And Lan kind of goes, "No thanks."
He puts her down gently. Dude.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
He basically says, "I'm not going to live long enough. I can't make you happy. You're going to be a widow." So it's kind of...
he says no. He says, no.
I think it's cool, man. And we actually did miss the part back in Chenier where we find out, we hinted at this and we kind of just said, hey, he's important. Lan's important. He is the last Lord of the Seven Towers. And this is a side story, but we'll take 30 seconds to tell you that as the last Lord of the Seven Towers, his kingdom used to be in the Blight, Malakir, and it was actually there was a lot of jealousy within the royal family. And long story short, they could have gone into the Blight and destroyed a lot of Trollocs, but there was a dark friend among them, and there was this jealousy, and actually that divided the kingdom, and they fell apart. The Trollocs destroyed them, and Lan was taken as a baby out of the kingdom and protected and raised as a warrior by the 20 guardsmen. Only 5 were left alive after they escaped, and it was a really cool Shakespearean tragedy, in my opinion. So I love that he grew up as a warrior because of these last of his race, and I was like, man, that's tragic. Man, he's even cooler.
But then he's bound to Moiraine, and what really, I guess, helped Nynaeve back down a little bit was when Lan looked at her and he said, look, I've been with Moiraine for like all these years. She's practically my work wife. So, I mean, I can't be with you as well. And then Nynaeve, that's when okay, all right, you know what I mean? And but the dirty looks that Egwene was giving Lan the next day.
Dude, you've made it official. Every romantic encounter or description is such high school drama. But anyway, we'll get past that. So my one issue with the book, and this is the end. Boom, bam. We have to actually. There's a lot to chew on here. The end comes quickly in the Blight because the trees start attacking them. I loved how Lan goes all, just all crazy on us, destroying these beasts out of sight.
And Matt did something good here. Matt shot a beast before it could get Lan. I give a round of applause for Matt.
Score it, yeah.
All right, good job, Matt. But you know what? Now you're terrible again. Good job, you shot an arrow. Great.
I forgot about that. But the beasties here, make the sword. Lan's sword is steaming with this foul black foulness, and they're gutting monsters left and right. And then all of a sudden they go away. The forest or the woods are still, and then we find out the worms are behind them. The worms are apparently super scary, super dangerous, and basically I love it because it's getting good. And here's where my issue is. Lan basically says, "Go, Moiraine, I'm leaving you, my work wife, and I'm going to sacrifice myself." Nynaeve's like, "No!" And Moraine's like, "Hush, girl, we have to make an important decision here." So you're kind of like, I'm kind of like, Lan, no, dude, you're the only like.
It was pretty dramatic. It was like, Lan, you're the only one that's going to help everyone. Please don't leave yourself out there to be eaten by all these trees. I'm right there with you.
Then what happens? Bam! Oh, we run into the grove, the green man's grove, and the Blight is gone. So it's a little sudden. So that's my only nitpick, and I won't nitpick.
No, but that's why it works. See, I didn't find that to be an issue for. I'm on the exact opposite side of this than you, because the Green Man could sense they were in desperate need not only to see the eye of the world, but they were in desperate need for their lives, and he appeared. Because you end up finding out that his country is there. It's there, but it's almost like in a different dimension. It's not a different dimension, but it has to be open to them. I thought it was awesome. I actually liked it. So take that, Josh.
No, you made me feel much better about that scene. I can swallow it now, and I can say, whew, okay, that was on purpose. That's good. So where are they now? They find the Green Man. And the Green Man, he's a really mysterious figure. Jolly Green Giant, closer to that than Area 51 alien.
Here's the way I picture the Green Man, and my imagination at this point has been tainted by Hollywood. But if you've ever seen the movie Hellboy 2, which is a pretty fun movie, they have a massive forest creature giant thing in that movie. And if you've never seen it, look up pictures of this online, because the way they describe the Green Man is very much the way that forest god basically looked in that movie. It was Hellboy 2, but that's the way I pictured him. He was made up of vines and grass for hair, and literally a green, living plant man. I thought it was really, really cool. There were so many cool things in this book. We've been laughing and being sarcastic, but the imagination of Robert Jordan just goes beyond. And this was done in the 90s, guys. You know, the movie I'm referring to came out in the last decade. This was in the 90s. What an imagination.
I agree with you. Even with the introduction of the Green Man near the end of the story, I feel really connected with him in a way, with how Jordan describes him. He's a caretaker. He goes to a giant lush, he tends this giant garden, this giant other dimension. This is the sanctuary for the eye of the world, and he makes plants grow right in front of you. And he's been entrusted with the eye of the world for 3,000 years. And a lot of mythology just is put out right here. You're kind of like, whoa, this Green Man has been the protector, and he instinctively knows who these people are he's dealing with. He comments on their dress. He hints that, again, Rand is the dragon reborn. I think that's like the 20th clue. He says it's different, and he trusts them. It's like, why would he lead them to the eye of the world? I was, again, trying to make sure that we're being honest here with does this make sense? And basically, the Green Man, he instinctively knows that things are different now. He says he's kept faith until the eye of the world was needed, and now it ends. That's got a quote from him. He says, and now it ends. And he takes him up to the corridor where the eye of the world is. So you have this pseudo-mystical figure. He leads them right to the entrance of the eye. What is it? That's the big
Josh,
question.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you this. We mentioned in the last podcast that, or maybe it was episode number 2 for the Eye of the World series or the book, this idea of a serpent's eye kept coming up. I was expecting some kind of serpent or something. That had come up so often that but there was no serpent, even like a correlation to a serpent when they actually found the eye. Did you find a connection there, or did I misinterpret, or was that just throwaway? Or was the serpent the cord that wrapped itself around Rand? And I'm not giving anything away just yet, but
I'll be honest with you. I've always thought the Dragon Reborn. I don't know why that's one of the nicknames of the lead warrior for every generation in the light.
That would be the serpent. Okay.
I think that's the only connection. Yeah. So I'm head over heels with all this mythology. So I never gave it a second thought. But that's a really good point. They don't mention that, but
but I think what you said might answer the question, because again, Robert Jordan kind of giving you a higher level concept. It's just he's alluded to what it really is. So yeah, the dragon would be a serpent, and the eye of the world, yes, would be his power. Anyway, but I wanted to have a good conversation about what the eye actually is.
So the big question is, what is it? Not quite so sure. We have our suspicions at this point, but he does tell them, the Green Man tells the group, or the Andorians and the other guys, how the eye was created. So this is really cool. This kind of expounds on the war at the very beginning of the book. So the light was victorious over the shadow, but then the breaking of the world happened. We find out the counterstroke from the Dark One was where the Lord of the Morning killed his own family, and in his grief and rage, he absorbed too much of the power, and then it got tainted, and that broke the world. So what I took away was that the breaking of the world and the Dark One's counterstrike and all this, it let him win to a degree. So in this breaking, all the last of the male Aes Sedai and the women who worked together to make the Eye of the World to contain the Dark One, they succeeded, but they paid for it with their life. So my mind's just being blown right here. It's like, holy cow, so the Eye of the World is this a prison, or kind of the last stand?
I kind of took that differently as well. I thought they had worked together to make those unbreakable seals out of, what was it, Hearthstone, to actually seal the Dark One's prison. But the Eye of the World, what I gathered was, and it took both male and female, was that it was 100% pure, untainted Sidene, the male side, and they pooled it together in one place for a time of great need, when a male Aes Sedai could come and access the power and use it in that great time of need. But it was pure, untainted, one power right there. And I want to say it was Sidene because of the way Rand was able to use it. That's what I took away from it.
I have to say that you're a genius, because that makes total sense. They said they wanted to make You're right. They actually quote it, John. They worked through the taint of the Dark One on Sadine to make it and make it pure, knowing that doing so would kill them all. It's right there in the text. And I kind of miss that because there's so much mythology here. I'm like,
Oh no, it gets
what's
real complicated now.
going on? No, thanks. You kind of kept us. You kept our expertise, made us legit there.
But
So,
now they did say though that the one power is what drives the wheel of time. Therefore, if the Dark One can come and access the eye of the world, which is a pool of pure untainted Sidene, and let's say he can taint it and blind it and destroy it or use it up, then suddenly he breaks the power that drives the wheel of time. Therefore, he breaks time. Therefore, he is not bound by anything anymore. So
yeah. So we come to it, John. We come to it. This is kind of a pivotal moment. We go to the eye of the world, and we go in there. It's this placid lake. It's this mirror like reflection like that can't has no ripples in it, and it can't be disturbed, I guess. And what's the first thing that we do? Matt goes in and kicks a stone in it.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, guy. Matt.
This is the most powerful thing in the world, and he kicks a rock into it, and no one actually calls him on it, so it's humor. We can sit here and poke fun at Matt, but not a big deal. And then Moraine, she does something crazy. She says, we have a little bit of time. These guys are scared of the eye of the world. No one can answer what it is. They're all staring at it, and Rand is scared. He wants to back away from it. So there's this again, a sense that he doesn't want to be related to this. He doesn't want to be anybody's hero. It just reinforces how these guys have been dragged to the end of the world, and they have to confront their own fears and find their own destiny. But they're still human. They're still very real, and I appreciate that they're not just kind of like we're the archetype superheroes, and we just somehow got that way. So I really, again, it keeps the book really super authentic. But then Moraine does something crazy, and she says, we have time. Let's go walk outside. And the whole journey they've been racing against time. So I just laughed because it was, I don't know, maybe kind of random. But what happens when they get outside? They meet some really cool dudes out there.
But something that I consider to be a plot hole. Now this is a legitimate plot hole to me, and maybe you can correct my course. However, if the Green Man would only appear to people or allow them into his country out of the most desperate need, okay, then how did these two forbidden ones find their way in, or forsaken ones find their way into his country while he's already hosting another group who actually had a great need? You see what I'm saying?
I
don't understand how they got in there.
They actually made mention of the fact that the whole time the Dark One's seals have been weakening. So remember throughout the whole book.
I understand how they got out. I just don't understand how they found the Green Man, because no one can find him unless he shows himself to them.
Balthamel and Agenor are the two Forsaken that are released. It's really cool because they make them super scary, and they talk about how different they are. These are all individual Forsaken. Again,
yeah, the Balthamel was like a gimp. That's all I could picture. They said he had some crazy leather mask on and all this other weird stuff. Yeah.
No, you actually mentioned what I was going was with Balthamel. The fact that he was too close to the eye when they were bound. I can't remember, but there's some pretty cool language that says Balthamel is kind of, he's cursed to always seek the eye, and Agenor was cursed and he was too close to humanity.
They were too close to the surface or something, yeah.
Yeah, so basically the Forsaken have made it into the Green Man's grove, and you're like, holy cow. And this is kind of really fun to watch play out, because no one can, the Forsaken can sit here and are almost as powerful as the Dark One. They can't compete. These 7 can't compete against 2 Forsaken. And
no, but Nynaeve tries anyway.
Nynaeve tries. She's like, Lan!
Oh yeah, because Lan just gets smashed against the stone, right? Was it Agenor or Balthamel? One of them waves his hand and Lan smashes against the stone. I mean, just this incredible power.
Yeah.
And there goes Nynaeve. I'm gonna help you, Lan, because I love you.
And the next thing you know,
yeah, no, she didn't get tossed down. She got picked up by her face. And then this is where it got a little dark, though, because this guy starts going on about I've forgotten the pleasures of the flesh, and I'm going, oh boy, we know what are they doing in her mind right now, So it got a little It
It
got a little
was.
creepy at that point.
It was. I actually thought they were dead. I thought Lan got killed. You know, they talk about a couple things in the book make me think, hey, not time travel per se, but can they help people even if they die? So I thought the Forsaken were just picking them off one by one. Agenor swatted at Lan like a fly, and I thought he just crushed him. So Moraine actually holds Agenor slowly, and she tells everyone to run. She's like,
Well, but
run!
after the Green Man steps out of nowhere, there was a kind of a
Oh,
lengthy. There were several pages in between when they come out of this cave, and then the Green Man just steps out of nowhere and he grabs Balthamel. This was actually really cool because when he pressed him to his chest and the vine started to crush Balthamel, and then Balthamel sets the Green Man on fire. Like, who didn't see that one coming? And then, but the way he died, the way the Green Man finally forced his vines and his moss into Balthamel's body and literally ripped his body apart with all the plant life was really, it was graphic, and it was final. And I enjoy hearing about terrible evil things being destroyed. So pretty good ending to Balthamel. But Agenor was the one you had to watch out for. He was the one that was really powerful.
No, we should have had an introduction there. Green Man versus Bartholomew. And that was cool because he did come out of nowhere and he took out the Forsaken. So it's one down, one to go. But that was a graphic scene. The Green Man got caught on fire and he died. I don't know. I can't remember. He died
beautiful
right there.
Death, though, because that oak tree sprang up immediately when he died. That was a beautiful death.
It was his gravesite, and Agenor was a little surprised. So that was awesome. I was like, can't wait to see that in a movie, to be honest with you. Agenor was taken aback a little, and the Moraine freezes him in this fire cage for a second, but he's just laughing at her, slowly walking through it. And then Rand, he has his moment. He pushes Egwene out of there. He's like, run! And then but Agenor looks at him, which chills him to the bone pretty much. So they know that he's the one they're looking for, and he runs. And he's no match. No one's a match for these titans of the dark. These are like titans, and they're going to come and get him. And Agenor, as far as Rand runs, this is the end right here. Agenor tracks him down, and basically he's not old and decrepit anymore. He's becoming a flesh and human man again. He's getting stronger, and Rand is freaking out. He's backing up to the edge of the cliff, and he thinks this is the end because Agenor says, "I'm not going to grovel to you. I don't care if the Dark One wants you. I was there when we destroyed the last dragon, blah, blah, blah." He's in this monologue, and basically Rand's like, this is it. And we see this little cord. This was really interesting. How is Agenor getting this strength? It's this light cord attached to him, and this is where I think he's siphoning the power of the Sedine from the Eye of the World. I don't know what you think, John, where this came from, but then
that's exactly where it came from.
Good,
yeah,
good. And
because the cord then, yeah.
So good. I actually made a connection there. And Rand is pulsing toward him. And I love the inner turmoil this kid is going through. It pulses toward him, and it latches onto him. And I can't remember. Agenor keeps saying
Agenor was very unhappy about that.
but what does Rand keep repeating? He said, "It's go away," or he said, "This must end," but Agenor says, "It's mine, it's mine." And basically it's this battle of wills, and then this huge flash, and we get into some really dreamy, interesting sequences. This is kind of the climax of the book. Rand appears,
This is where Rand almost has like a transcendental awakening, but he's completely consumed by the power of the light, whether he wants to be or not. And he says that at the end of the book. He was basically along for the ride. So this power chose him because he is the dragon reborn. Well, you know what? They never said that in the book, so I actually need to be careful saying that. I haven't read any of the other books. So we assume he's the dragon reborn, okay? And the light chooses him, and then he's just dragged along, and he's doing physical actions, and I guess through those actions the light is expelling its power.
I like the way you described it, the transcendental experience. And he ends up on the battlefield at the Gap of Tarwin. And it's, again, the Spartan 300 are about at that point. They're making their last stand, and I love it. He channels the power. I visualized a huge dark valley with, the sky blackened by the ravens or the Trollocs and everyone, it's hundreds of mirror draw, and so the men are about to die, and obviously he's their savior, and he ripples the land, kind of like Moraine did earlier. He makes the land come alive and swallow, all these Trollocs, and he wreaks havoc, and there's lightning in the sky. So it's a really cool scene, but it's almost this kind of middle passage, kind of it fades into a dream, and this transcendental state keeps going, right?
Yeah,
And
he didn't really seem to know, like, he wasn't physically. It seemed like he wasn't. Well, he was physically wielding the power, but he wasn't choosing to wield it. So he was saying this has to end, and he fell to the ground, and he started beating the ground, not because he wanted to ripple the ground and make it explode beneath the Trollocs' feet. He did it because he just wanted it to end, and he was so angry, he kept beating the ground, and then he'd look up at the Drakkar, and lightning would shoot down. It was just by him looking at things, and the light was just taking care of it. It was pretty cool.
it was pretty cool. And Robert Jordan wraps up everything that he's been hinting at here, because Rand he ascends this staircase into this black void, and this whole time this inner turmoil is going on. And you said he's completely consumed by the light, but his father taught him to have this calm place, this calmness in the void, and he's holding on to what little of himself he can. He's trying to hold on to who he is, and I found that amazing, because he's going to sit here and he's going to control the light to a degree if he can just remember a little bit of who he is and not let it consume him. And then he shatters this door at the top of the stairs, and where do we end up at? We're in the room that's been in his dreams, where he's always met Baal Mazan, the Dark One, with this fireplace, this tortured fireplace of heads and people's souls on the mantle and this balcony overlooking some crazy, darkened horizon, and Baal Mazan is there. And so, in keeping with the fact that this kid can't match the guy, he's channeling the one power, but he's still, like you said, he's being driven, and he could literally be destroyed. Basically, it's kind of like the dragon in the beginning. He was destroyed for a different reason, but he's come upon this power. He's been chosen.
Yeah, the dragon was destroyed because he channeled too much power all at once. And here's Rand, who's got this pure Sidene with this, this cord of energy attached to him, and he's channeling more power than the Dark One can even believe. I mean, the Dark One says you can't possibly channel this much power at once. Like, I have to teach you how to do this. And then I had a question for you, because the Dark One had a cord around himself, and it was a dark cord. And in the whole book, I've never been able to figure out where the Dark One is drawing his power from. Like, it never is actually said, but then at the end, he's got this dark, this cord of dark energy, which is much thicker than Rand's. But I don't know where his power is coming from.
That's interesting. I never thought about it explicitly. Maybe it's the tainted Sidene, and maybe they can, if they sever it, then he's gonna be forever reaching, trying to get it back. That's a really good point. And when they go head to head, John, he's taunting Rand. He's demeaning him, saying, you're like a bug. You're like this, just a leaf in the wind. You can't possibly defeat me. And Rand's not intimidated. That's the thing. He tries this tactic. The Dark One tries this intimidation, and then so he goes to his second tactic. He brings Rand's mom, who is a tortured soul. And she makes mention that she was weak, and that I guess her soul's been imprisoned and tortured by Baal Mazan. Yeah, she's his slave. And then Marjoril start torturing her, and this
that
so
was
basically
graphic. Yeah,
it was horrible. Because Rand has so many daddy and mommy issues, and I don't say that lightly, but it's like his mother that he never knew, or maybe she died when he was young. I can't recall. But bottom line is, this sword of light comes to him, and this is fueling his energy. So it backfires on the Dark One. So there's not some big climatic battle. It's kind of, again, this kind of battle of wills. It's like a game of chess, and the Dark One loses because he incurs the wrath of Rand, who channels this light sword, hacks away the Marjoril, and I think his mom disappears. And he basically goes for the Dark One, and he severs this dark cord. And there's this raging light, and the Dark One basically this defeats him. So it's this one quick, swift move, and I wasn't looking for anything epic. This was again what I thought was a pretty interesting ending to their conflict. The whole book, the dreams, the whole fact that he couldn't possibly compete, and then Rand actually does what the Eye of the World was maybe meant to do, was to defeat the Dark One in the greatest time of need. So I love how Balmazan just, even the faces in the fireplace are laughing at him because he's defeated. So I thought it was really cool.
Well, Rand, there were actually about 3 things here I wanted to discuss with you. I know we're at the end of the podcast now. Sorry, listeners, we went long as usual. But first is, Baalzamon never met Rand with physical force. The only thing Baalzamon had the whole time were mind games. That's all he could do. I actually did expect there to be some kind of force battle between these two where they're throwing their hands up and the other goes flying across the room, at least to some extent, because when you think about the Dark One, he's going to have the ultimate power for that dark side. But he didn't do any of that. He just played these mind games until Rand finally got his sword of light and hacked the dark cord that was around him. Little surprised by that, but at the same time a little bit refreshed that it wasn't the same old, same old. And then Rand, of course, points the sword at Baalzamon's heart and drives just bolts of energy into his heart, and he withers and burns. But at the end of the book, and this is where I just want to pat Robert Jordan on the back again, he kept it so... He didn't keep it ambiguous, he just kept it complicated. Moiraine says at the end of the book, I wonder if the use that we put the Eye of the World to was actually its real purpose, or was it meant to, because they found some things. The pool was gone at the end of this. Rand used up every bit of that pure sidene that was there, and they found some things afterwards. And we can talk about that in a sec. But she says, or was it really meant just to protect these things so no one could get to them? So there's still that ambiguity. It's like, did we even do the right thing? We've defeated the Dark One, but did we do it the right way? Brilliant. I mean, way to set up your next book.
It is brilliant. It doesn't feel like a cliffhanger or you're cheated. It actually just shows you how deep the mythology will go. And so the 3 things that they do find when Rand comes back from this the state he's in. I can't even say it. Transcendent state.
Transcendental.
Whatever. Well, and he comes back, and Moiraine
Josh does English.
Moiraine knows who Rand is, but they keep it a secret from everyone else. They're still trying to let this kid have some semblance of a normal life. But the 3 things that they bring out, the other characters, number 1, it is the Heartstone that's not supposed to be able to be broken by anyone of any power in any age. The Heartstone, once it's made, is indestructible. This thing is broken. And basically she said this was one of the 7 seals, I think, that kept the Balmazan in his prison. You're like, holy cow. So there's a teaser right there for you. That's broken. And Rand said, doesn't matter, I killed him. Now, he didn't say it out loud, but there again is that ambiguity, but also that fear of what does that mean. And then the second one is an even bigger discovery. It's the Horn of Valir. The Horn of Valir is this relic that's been mentioned in the book occasionally. We really didn't touch on it, I don't think, but in every age people go looking for it because this thing can summon the heroes of the Age of Legends. So people long dead and gone, they can be summoned by this horn. So that's really enticing. She says this thing has to go to Aelion, another big city in this world. And so that sets up the next book. It's like, whoa. And the next book in the series is called The Great Hunt. So the Horn of Valir, pretty enticing how maybe we could have some formidable light warriors that can battle the coming evil, I think. And the third one is the Lord of the Morning's banner. So basically the Lord of the Morning, who did defeat the Shadow in the very beginning before he was tricked and before he basically went insane. His banner is there, so he was the one who led the light forces. So,
and it is a dragon or a serpent, like you said earlier.
Bingo! It is a dragon serpent. So that's pretty much the big reveal at the end. And our characters, they don't leave it there and like, woohoo, big gotcha, that's the end, and everybody has their mouths open. They go back to Shinar and basically they say Rand's not giving any clues, but he's telling Egwene in private in this little conversation, I can't go home. and they kind of hint the fact that Matt's got to get help, Perrin's got to get help, they got to go find their destinies. So they're going to go their separate ways, probably. Egwene, he has regrets with her. She's going to be an Aes Sedai. And so there's this kind of intimate conversation at the end. And the closing words in the book are Moraine's. Moraine is eavesdropping with her magic stone. And she basically says, based off what Rand is talking about, he knows he has to stay away from people. He doesn't want to hurt people. He doesn't want to ever use the one power again. And she's listening to the conversation. I'm not sure if she can read his thoughts, but her closing words are hers and of the books. It says the prophecy will be fulfilled. The dragon is reborn.
You know what? I'm such a dummy because they did say it in the book, the very last words of the book, and I knew that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Score one for Josh.
But I don't know, any parting thoughts there, or do you want to sit here and tell us your verdict of the whole story?
No, I didn't have any other parting thoughts. I'm pretty sure I got everything out, except maybe if you want to crack some more jokes on Matt. We did talk about him becoming succumbing to the dark side, so he'll be Darth something. Hey listeners, if you want to put up some awesome names for what Matt's going to become under this other story that I've written in my head now, I've already come up with two. We've got Darth Dagger and Darth Dingus. So if you want to add some more, that'd be great.
Poor Matt.
No, not poor Matt. I can't. Matt, yes, Matt.
So Rand is the Dragon Reborn. He's who we should care about, and he's not annoying. So that's the silver lining. His friend is going to go away, hopefully. But John, the story ends on this note, and I wrap my head around the fact that Jordan gives you a complete story. He gives you flawed characters that you can relate to, characters that go through something incredible, an incredible journey that took so many hard right turns and left turns. I couldn't have guessed where it was going. And so I loved the true fantasy nature of the narrative and how these things will come up. We'll have these powers. We'll meet people. Excuse me. We'll meet people who can do all these different things and help save us, and the journey just is so complex, and it's something that I think from a fantasy standpoint, it's the epitome of creating a world that is different from anything we've ever seen, and it's real. It feels real, and the journey is kind of riveting in a way that keeps you guessing the whole way through. So I loved The Eye of the World. 5 out of 5 stars. Loved the Green Man. Loved the Forsaken. Loved Moraine and all the politics of Camelin and everything else. I just hope that Rand doesn't, kind of go crazy, because there's still a lot at stake. And so we are going to continue the Wheel of Time series. We are.
No, I'm right there with you. 5 out of 5 stars. Robert Jordan, genius story. And by the way, this is how you write a standalone book that can continue into a larger series, but still let the reader feel like they wrapped up a story. Okay, this is how you do it, because that was a definite ending to this story. I could stop here and feel happy about everything. Not that it has to be that way every time, but great first book to the series. So we will definitely continue reading Robert Jordan's stuff, and this is going to be a long process to work through all of these books, and we're not going to do them back to back to back to back just for our own sake. But this is the start of our Robert Jordan adventure, so please leave your comments.
Woo-hoo! It was epic. Loved it. We use that word, but I don't care. We could overuse it all day long with this story. And since we're not reading The Great Hunt next, we'll tell the listeners that the next book is Mist, the book of Atris. There's a couple of Mist stories. This is an interesting series. We won't give anything away, but the book of Atris is the first one. If anyone's interested in going there with us, that is next week on thereignofbooks.com. You can check us out at the website. Subscribe via iTunes from the website. You have to get the direct URL there, or Stitcher if you're a Android fan. That's an iTunes competitor. And we will see you next time on the Reign of Books podcast. Listen to the book trailers. We're going to have video reviews coming soon. Lots of exciting things. Check us out on Goodreads. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.